Every year, on the first Sunday of February, a commemorative service is held at the Bergvliet Marshal Hall in Cape Town. The event commemorates the border war and serves to remember all those that laid down their lives in this conflict that lasted for more than 20 years. Veterans of this war get together, march around the block, and then hold a commemorative service where a guest speaker delivers a talk. After this, they get together for a few drinks and share a few memories. It is sad to note that every year, their numbers become fewer. This year, the guest speaker was Rear Admiral Junior Grade retired Arne Stonderland. We apologize for the sound quality, but due to a howling southeaster wind, we had to run the audio through several sound filters just to make it audible.
On behalf of the Cape Western Provincial Dugout of the Memorable Order of Tin Hats, welcome to the 14th Annual Border Campaign Memorial Parade and Service, as hosted by this dugout at Dawn Patrol Shallow. I am Moth Philip McLaughlin and will be acting as Master of Ceremonies. The Parade Commander is Provincial Old Bull Moth Dave Revel. The Parade Sergeant Major is Moth Ricky van Staden, and the Bugler is Staff Sergeant Marius Pfeiffer of the Army Band Western Cape. Before we proceed, please allow me to welcome our keynote speaker, Rear Admiral Junior Grade Retired Arnie Sutherland, PSSM MMM. Family members present who have lost loved ones during the border campaign, members representing Mothwa, and members from various other veterans organizations. Please also allow me to thank the following institutions for assistance rendered: the City of Cape Town, especially the Traffic Department, ER24 South Metropole, our old friends, the Cape Town Caledonia Pipe Band, and last but not least, Old Bull Billy Hill and the members of Dawn Patrol Shallow who are hosting us all here today and who have turned Dawn Patrol Shallow's premises into an immaculate showcase for Mothdom. We are gathered here today to commemorate the sacrifices made by comrades of our generation. Let us commence with the service and remember our dead.
Thank you for the privilege of addressing you today, a very special occasion, and also for giving me an excuse to cut some of my hair. We traditionally remember our fallen comrades on Remembrance Day in November, and also commemorate special battles where South African troops played a major or heroic part, such as Delville Wood or El Alamein in the First and Second World Wars respectively, or in cases such as the loss of the Mendi. But today we specifically remember the victims of the first campaign fought on our own borders and across it since the Southwest African campaign of 1914-15. It is also the war that, other than for those some stalwart veterans of World War II and Korea, brings the majority of us together as we were the generation that participated in it. Whilst the Bush War started some 50 years ago in 1966, it was a low-level conflict and an unconventional one. It was fought by smaller police and army units, but ably supported by the Air Force and the medical service. Just over 40 years ago, in October 1975, however, it all changed. We were in North Savannah, seeing South African forces moving across the border into Angola. The conflict moved up a notch to a much higher level, and the border campaign became a reality, for it now involved the entire spectrum of the SADF, even the South African Navy, and moved into the more semi-conventional field. What made this campaign so different for us, however, is its duration. For whilst World War I lasted some 4¼ years, claiming over 7,000 brave men, World War II some 5 2/3 years, with 12,000 men and women paying the supreme sacrifice. This one was to last nearly 23 years, covering an entire generation change. To most, in South Africa it was a distant conflict, with relatively minor casualties coming in and being announced by the press. However, it cost the SADF the lives of 1,800 men through various causes, all brought on by the fact we were in a conflict. And those are the ones we remember today. More importantly, unlike the previous wars fought solely with volunteers, this one saw hundreds of thousands of conscripts involved, either directly or in support. Yes, there were many who were objectors and did their best to avoid being called up, but the vast majority played their part, were without them, we, and here I include the Navy, would not have been able to maintain the momentum that saw us through those torrid times. They, along with us, played a major part in the fall of the Soviet Union and the East Bloc, something few people realize. But that also allowed the peaceful transition to independence of Namibia and eventual reconciliation there. Sadly, something still beyond our grasp here in South Africa, where the past remains unforgiven and in the highlight today, in spite of the TRC. With Op Savannah, the South African Air Force became a combatant force, rather than just a support force. Whilst the medical service became part of the front lines. And few will forget the part played by the Occupiers. Whilst the South African Navy were tasked to patrol the coast alongside the advancing army forces, little thought was given of them, or any need for them to be called into help, until the 10th of November, 1975, when an exuberant FNLA force with 2 battalions of the Zairian Armed Forces and a small team, army team under Brigadier de Wet Roos, with 2 antiquated World War II 5.5-inch guns in support. The advance was met by an unexpected but very accurate barrage, followed by advancing Cuban special forces, which routed the attackers completely, leaving a very isolated group of 26 South African officers men in their dust, with no way out. The route to the south was closed. On the night of the 28th of November, the frigate SS President Steyn closed to 3 nautical miles in pitch darkness on the darkened coast of Ambrizette, a small town well to the north of Luanda, and sent a boat ashore to meet up with them. By sunrise the next morning, using a helicopter Wasp and 3 boats, all 26 men and their equipment were safely on board and opening on the coast. General Constant Viljoen, who was always very concerned about the safety of his troops and guns, later said of that night, and I quote him, "I can honestly say that was the most difficult night ever in my operational career." Interesting words indeed. The South African Navy had joined the war, albeit only in an important support task, but had shown that it had long legs in an area where the enemy was not yet operating and had no mines or bridges to destroy. This was an important realization, albeit missed by the generals, as it showed more important advantages of the Navy, other than hot eggs and bacon for breakfast and toilets available, fishing toilets, even on operations. Luckily, Special Forces did take note. By 1978, the first of many top-secret joint operations by the South African Navy and Special Forces commenced. All extremely discreet and on a need-to-know basis, and a very strict one as well. By 1988, when peace arrived, over 45 operations had been conducted without the knowledge of the public or even the vast majority of the SADF, not even in the Navy. More importantly, without the actual knowledge of the enemy or their advisors, the Russian advisors, as the ability was kept so discreet, even after one of the landing boats was destroyed on a beach just north of Namibia. It was attributed to a Japanese trawler, Japanese flag trawler, covertly operated by us. And even after the capture of Captain Wynand du Toit, who, when asked if he was part of the force that came ashore from the Japanese trawler, confirmed it. They gave him the word. Whilst the use of submarines was suspected, the Russian advisors and Angolans did not consider the strike craft capable of operating at such distances, as in supporting documents and interviews, their missile boats were purely coastal craft. Apart from some early operations, such as 4 attempts at assassinating Bob Mugabe in Maputo with his SAS, and later an attack on the ANC headquarters, which destroyed the ANC headquarters in central Maputo, close to the presidential palace, and by the way, that contributed directly to the Nkomati Accord. Most were strategic strikes against enemy lines of communications and supply. These included destruction of all oil storage tanks in Lobito, an attack on the Luanda oil refinery, tanks in Beira, and even the destruction of diesel locomotives on the Luanda-Benguela line, as well as laying of the line that was only restored in 2003. Obviously, in 1986, this illustrated the major effect these strikes had on the landward operations, and thus directly supported the other services. The sinking of 3 ships carrying over 25,000 tons of weapon, ammunition, and supplies, 2 Russian and 1 Cuban, in Lviv harbor not only damaged or destroyed the cargo, it effectively blocked the general cargo key for some months to any other vessel. In the same operation, the fuel tanks holding fuel to the front were destroyed, as well as the rail and power installations. This resulted in the postponing of the advance completing the naval on Mavinga by 1 year. 2 more such supply ships had previously been sunk in Luanda itself. Not all were successful though, and off Argon, the attack on Kabinda was in fact the first acknowledgement that such operations were being carried out. In spite of this embarrassing public revelation, and more importantly the tragic loss of 2 very brave operators and the capture of the wounded raid commander, there was an important consolation. The remaining 6 members, although surrounded entirely in a small wood and with 2 very serious casualties, one the second in command who had been blinded, were able to evade the enemy and be extracted by a submarine where a trauma doctor was in standby before being rushed south in a strike craft for further medication and treatment. That doesn't matter. It gets my hair in my eyes, I'm afraid. As I said, some of my hair was cut. As I say, the interesting thing that we had in our operations was the massive medical support, and in every case it was guaranteed that an operator was within 8 hours of medical treatment. Most ops were conducted by submarine and or strike craft, but many of the more distant ones could not have been achieved without the support of other naval vessels, such as SAS Protea, the White Lady, SAS Tafelberg, and even SAS President Pretorius, often carrying advanced medical teams, as I mentioned, to supplement the trauma doctors on the raiding vessels. On Operation Castle, the attack on the oil refineries in Luanda, I carried Dr. Wouter de Son, one of my trauma doctors, and I witnessed the results of his work, one of the badly wounded and burnt operators under horrid conditions, great pressure. But there were lighter moments during these operations. In one operation off of Beira, the strike craft were darkened and closing the coast to uplift the raiding team, who just started a nasty surprise in the local fuel tank at the depot. All was very quiet, and the order was given to sound action stations, hands-free recovery stations, closing the coast coming to quite a close distance from the coast. Unfortunately, a slight mistake was made. Instead of the action alarm, the foghorn was sounded, blaring across the darkened bridge, where all were peering anxiously into the night looking for the wakes of the boat, resulting in temporary shock, I would almost say panic, and a lot of swear words, and also an immediate inquiry from the escorting boat what the hell was going on. It took some time to calm the colonel, but the boats found their way home very easily. In Operation Castle, which I have mentioned, just after the tragic early detonation on a fuel tank that killed a very respected Special Forces officer and seriously injured 2 more operators, the 2 strike craft closed the beach just to the north of Luanda Harbour to shorten the return and get the casualties on board as soon as possible. The skies were ablaze from the burning fuel tank, and the gun director was ordered to observe the harbour for any movement as the Russian destroyer was alongside, and they had the torpedo boats on standby as well. Amongst all the conning and the preparations, the fishing nets to avoid, the plaintive call of the director operator, "Sir, sir," suddenly caught my attention. Jumping onto the director, asked him, "What? Where?" Expecting the sighting of an enemy vessel. His reply, "Sir, is this all legal?" was not the correct one. He didn't charge me. Fun enough, it did help calm the situation. I'm sure we all have memories of the war. The most important one is to remember that many of our comrades are not here to bear them with us. Not only those who died during the conflict, but also those who suffered on, even after its end. We discovered new illnesses after that war too. Many still question the wisdom of this war, but if you like it or not, it's history. It happened, and we cannot change it or deny it now. But by the same token, it's not to be celebrated. We can but commemorate the loyalty and sacrifices of those who became victims of it, and continue to do so through such annual services of the war. I thank you. Just remain at the scene.
Thanks for watching, and please feel free to leave a comment and share this video. And above all, please subscribe to our channel. In closing, let us remember the moth credo. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.